Okay, we'll continue on with our conversation about blood vessels. So capillaries we've covered a couple of times. They're what connect arterioles to venules. They are the very end of the arterial system and start the venous system. These allow very close contact between the blood and the cells because they're only about a layer thick. There are billions of capillaries throughout the body. So this is not like one or two. I know that representation on a previous slide kind of showed that there were only 4. That's not true. It was just kind of giving you a general sense of where they're located or how the circuits run. Veins return oxygen depleted or deoxygenated blood back to the heart, except for that one special case of the pulmonary vein. The major veins all flow into 2 different big veins themselves. So the superior vena cava, that carries all the blood that returns from the head, the neck, the shoulders, the upper extremities. That carries that to the heart. The inferior vena cava carries blood that you get from the lower portion of the body back up to the heart, and they join at the right atrium. Your spleen is quite an interesting little organ. It's a solid organ located under the rib cage in the left upper quadrant. It filters out the blood. All of your kind of worn out, broken down blood cells go in there. Foreign substances, bacteria are all filtered out by your spleen. What this ends up doing is it highly vascularizes the spleen itself. Tons of blood goes through there. So if it gets injured from blunt trauma, which is you getting hit, so it doesn't necessarily break the skin, but it puts enough force or pressure on that organ to injure it, it can lead to some very, very severe internal bleeding. Blood composition. So your blood, though it looks like just this red oozy stuff, there's actually quite a bit of stuff in there if you were to look at it under a microscope. The liquid portion of your blood, which is actually the majority of it, is called plasma. This contains water and proteins. You have some oxygen that's actually dissolved in there as well, but not a whole heck of a lot. Carbon dioxide, the same. Nitrogen, nutrients, and then other cellular wastes. Then you have your red blood cells, also called erythrocytes. These contain hemoglobin, which ends up giving the blood its color. Hemoglobin itself, the molecule carries oxygen. That's what the oxygen actually binds to. White blood cells are called leukocytes. These play a role in the body's immune defense to fight off infection. Also plays a role in allergies, and we'll go through that here later. And then platelets. These are basically little teeny pieces of blood cells that help coagulate or stop bleeding. So they form a blood clot. Circulatory system physiology. So again, the function of the circulatory system. Blood pressure is the force that the blood exerts against the walls of an artery. We measure that with that brachial artery up in the arm. When the left ventricle of the heart contracts, it pumps blood from the ventricle into the aorta and then out to the body. And like I've said, when you check a pulse, what you are feeling is the contraction of the left ventricle, which is forcing blood through the artery. This is called systole. So when the heart is actually contracting and creating pressure against the blood vessels, systole. When the ventricle relaxes and there's no active force being applied, that's called diastole. When you measure blood pressure readings, you end up measuring systolic blood pressure, which is the high point of the wave where you're getting the most pressure, and then diastolic or diastole when you have the lowest amount of pressure. This can be measured with a blood pressure cuff. And then it's expressed in millimeters of mercury. That's what mmHg stands for. So it's written as your systolic pressure, which is the higher number, over the diastolic, and it looks just like a fraction. And then your units is mmHg. Normal circulation in adults, your body automatically adjusts and controls your blood pressure depending on what's going on in the body. Perfusion is the circulation of blood to the tissues to make sure that you have enough oxygen within the tissue or within an organ or within a cell to meet the needs of that cell. So in order for the cell to live, it has a minimum amount of oxygen that it needs. As long as it's getting that oxygen or even a little bit extra, we say that that is perfusing. If it's not, then you're having lack of perfusion. Blood is going to enter those organs through the capillaries, through the arterial side of the capillary. Diffusion takes place, and then blood leaves organs and tissues through veins into the venules, into the vein itself, taking along that carbon dioxide and other waste material with it. When we have inadequate circulation, the system can adjust to small amounts of blood loss. Your vessels are going to constrict, and the heart is going to pump more rapidly. With a lot of blood loss, your body just can't adjust it to keep up and keep you alive and functioning the way you're supposed to. So when this happens and your body just can't keep up with your blood circulation, you go into what's called shock. Shock is also called hypoperfusion, which just means it's the inadequate circulation of blood through an organ or a tissue. When you're thinking about how your body reacts and compensates, that's what we call it when your body adjusts to try and keep you at a relatively balanced state or homeostasis. Your compensation is your body altering one factor because another factor is failing. The function of blood, you fight infection through your leukocytes. You transport oxygen attached to hemoglobin on red blood cells. You transport carbon dioxide, a lot of times just dissolved within the blood. You control pH. Your blood has a set pH of 7.35 to 7.45. If you guys have taken chemistry, you know that neutral is at 7. So your blood is actually slightly alkalotic or on the base side of things. And your body is meant to stay there. If it goes too far up the scale towards 14 or it drops down the scale towards 0, and honestly it doesn't take a huge change, then you start getting very, very, very sick. You transport other wastes and nutrients aside from oxygen and carbon dioxide, and then clotting to keep your blood inside of your body. This is also called coagulation. Your nervous system controls a lot of what's going on in your cardiovascular system. So your sympathetic nervous system is responsible for what's called the fight or flight response. This is what kicks in response to a stimulus that prepares your body either to run away or to prepare to fight whatever's coming at you. It sends commands to your adrenal glands, which are sitting there on top of your kidneys on both sides, and they release epi and norepinephrine, which are more commonly known as adrenaline. This secretes into your blood vessels and travels throughout your body. It goes to your heart, which causes an increase in your heart rate, which causes more blood to leave your heart. So you need them in those tissues if you're going to take off running, or if you're going to need the extra strength to fight whatever's coming at you, you need more blood, so that your tissues get more oxygen. So that starts going there. This also causes your blood vessels to constrict, to take your blood pressure up. And this is due to a specific receptor that's on your blood vessels, above and beyond what you guys need to know, but they're called alpha adrenergic receptors. When you stimulate alpha, you end up causing constriction, namely your blood vessels. Your heart and lungs have beta adrenergic receptors, so when you end up stimulating those betas, you actually open up the bronchioles, and you can get more air into your lungs. Again, when you're going to run away, you need to be able to get oxygen into your body so that your muscles function better. So what better way to do that than to open up your lungs to allow for more air to come in on a single exhale? Your parasympathetic nervous system does have effects on your cardiovascular system, but it does the exact opposite. So your sympathetic is known as your fight or flight portion of your nervous system. Your parasympathetic is known as the rest and digest. So this is when you're hanging out, nothing's going on, you've eaten a meal and your body needs to take care of it. That's why you typically feel a little bit more sleepy after you've eaten. It really doesn't have a whole lot to do with tryptophan, which you've probably heard of in relation to turkey. That's why you eat turkey and you get so tired. More so, it's just that your body ends up pulling blood away from your muscles because you really don't need to be running around. What you need to do is be digesting your food, so it shunts it or pushes it into your organs that deal with digestion. The opposition of the sympathetic and parasympathetic causes the body to respond appropriately to the situation. If you're active and needing to be running around, or there's something that's challenging you or scaring you, sympathetic kicks in to prepare your body for that. In order to bring that back down, your parasympathetic is going to kick in. And we'll go on in the next video.